A talk or a stand-up comedy set or graffiti or a dance.
My name is Justin Garrity. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Free Range 360. We're an app publisher here in town in Portland. And data-driven mobile apps is all about taking data that you're learning from app usage, so how users basically use the app, what kind of content they look at, how they navigate around, and using that data to drive both new interfaces but also insights into how to make either new apps or how to make the apps that you have better. I think a mobile app, or a native app for a mobile device versus, let's say, a mobile web page or a mobile website. When you're looking at the data that it provides when the user's using a native app, typically we're looking at a lot of repeat kind of usage where they'll go into certain categories that they favor, they'll star and share certain articles, and they'll make it part of their daily routine, especially in commutes and times when they're on the go. So you'll notice huge spikes in usage during commuting times, so before work and after work. And either that's people, I guess, driving their car, maybe, at stoplights or in rush hour traffic, or a lot of times on trains or other kind of commutes, or even like right before they head out the door, maybe eating breakfast cereal, that kind of thing. So when they look at those stories and they look at that content and they use the app in that way in the morning, that's where we learn a lot of behavior about what kind of content and what kind of information they're looking for. That drives new app ideas. So a lot of the data that we're looking at is and a lot of these apps, and the apps that we make are typically for publishers, for news, so syndicated news every day. And we're looking at the views are related to, let's say, like sensational stories, like either crime or something about something dramatic that's happened, that night, burglary, murder, that type of thing, or just like local news or national news. But when it comes to sharing is where there's a huge split about what type of content gets shared. And we'll look at users will basically have a lot of views on an article that's all about murder, but there will be a lot of shares on, let's say, a new restaurant that opened up in town. And when we first saw that, we were trying to figure out why there was a difference, but then it just suddenly made sense, which is, these stories about like news events, like sensational, you already assume that everyone else knows that information, and so you're just the next in line to get the story. But for something like a restaurant that opens up, you might think of a friend that would also like to go to that restaurant, and you share that story with them, or that kind of news. A lot of horoscopes get shared. Something about a travel destination, local sports teams. A lot of times that gets shared. So it's interesting to look at the views versus what the shares are. Because we work with a lot of publishers, the first step is to get an app out there that essentially takes the content that they're syndicating every day, and they're putting it in one app. And when we look at this data about what users are kind of interested in, and when we see a lot of repeat patterns of looking at very niche content, it's when we have the idea of creating a split-off app, essentially a separate app that's all about that specific content. And so if we're looking at a lot of shares, they're about restaurants and travel destinations, well, that publisher can come out with their own app that's separate, that is all about food and travel. Or if you see a lot of usage or views on sports, local high school sports teams, you can come out with your own high school sports team app for that area. And that's really exciting to go from one app to many apps for these publishers. Yeah, I think right now we're using a lot of that data to gain insight on what kind of apps to create, but now we're working on interfaces that actually use the data itself, so in real-time feedback loop. So if we're seeing a lot of popular articles start to be shared a lot on different social networks or viewed a lot within the app, then all of a sudden that'll generate a new category of like popular or trending stories that is a new way to consume the news in that way in the mobile app format.